Hi there, this is Matt with State of Flux here with a review for Star Trek Picard Season 3. I have never seen a show rebound so radically well as Star Trek Picard does with its third and, as of this taping, final season of the show. It is staggering how much of a shift there is in quality. I thought Season 2 of Star Trek Picard was the worst individual season, and I'll even include individual entity. I'll go so far as to include all the movies, including the bad ones. Star Trek Picard is the worst that Star Trek has ever been cinematically. I think it is just straight awful. But Season 3 shifts that. Season 3, I think, is the best individual season of Star Trek since the very first season of the original series. I thought this was so exceptionally well executed. And there is one big shift that I think is the reason why Season 3 is as good as it is. And that is the showrunner was shifted to Terry Matalas. Now, Matalas helped do little bits here and there of trying to string things together when studio interference shifted Season 2 of Picard, but he wasn't responsible for Season 2. That was a different showrunner. He acts as showrunner for Season 3, and they in fact started developing Season 3 before Season 2 had even completed filming. And Matalas' work is exceptional, and he's no stranger to Star Trek. He got his career start working as an associate producer in Star Trek Voyager, and he started exercising his writing muscles and really helped shape Season 3 of Star Trek Enterprise, which is the only season of that show that acts as one kind of season-long feature film. All the episodes kind of move into each other. There are a couple one-offs here and there, but largely it is one long linear story. And that is what this is. He treated Season 3 of Picard as if it was one major motion picture, or really a trilogy of them. I think you could argue that he broke Season 3 into a trilogy of films. The first 4 episodes feel like one complete story. The middle 4 episodes feel like one complete story, and then the 2-part finale feels like the Star Trek Next Generation movie that we never got, but always wanted to finish off this franchise. So I think I'm going to talk about Season 3 in those parts directly. Before I do that, I do want to address one thing. As great as Season 3 is, it feels very dramatically different than the first 2 seasons of the show. Or really, it's just more noticeable because it's so different from Season 2. Not even in terms of quality, in terms of tone, in terms of what they're trying to achieve and do in order to tell this story. Weirdly enough, similar to the Abrams movies, the Kelvin timeline, if you remove the middle chapter, the story becomes stronger. Star Trek 09 feels like it has an organic sequel in Star Trek Beyond. A lot of the story threads connect back to that first movie, and the second movie is all but ignored. This is kind of similar to Picard. Obviously, Season 2 took a lot of players off the table by the end of it, so there is a noticeable difference in its cast. There is only one crew member who was a main character in the original season of Picard that carries over as a main character in this one. And then they elevate Jeri Ryan, 7 of 9's role considerably from that first to third season. However, if you remove Season 2 and all of its problems, but all of its themes and whatnot, the themes of this season of the show connect better to Picard Season 1 than they do if you include the middle chapter. If you want to see what I mean, you had Picard discovering the possibility that Data had offspring in Soji and her sisters, and everything that Soong did. There was very much a story about legacy that was built in there But he doesn't have that. He could be her mentor, but he could never be her father. Season 3 of Picard introduces Picard as a father. You get that natural next step, and continuing that story thread, you have the one-off episode, Nepenthe, in Season 1 that introduces Riker and Troi's children, one of whom is dead, and how it's sort of driven Riker away from what he was when we were familiar with him in the old shows and movies. You get to see how that is built into his character in this season, and the first 4 episodes really double down on how Riker feels like he failed Troi, he's failed himself, and he has nothing left to believe in because there's nothing in space but the darkness. Stars can't shine a light on. Because it is just that black. There's continuity there that works really, really well if you jettison the second season and just go immediately from Season 1 to Season 2. It seems weird that Soji isn't there, or Rios, or Elnor, but at the same time, you kind of can play it off like Soji needed to rediscover everything that happened with that planet at the end. And Rios was always the loner, and maybe he still is out there somewhere. And Elnor, I don't know, they didn't really seem to delve much into Elnor anyway, so whatever. But Raffi seemed like the one that still had story to tell the most. Her storyline wasn't wrapped up with Season 1. There was no conclusion to her. And in fact, there was a tease that her and 7 of 9 were an item. And that kind of gets played into this storyline as well. Everything to do with her family, her children, that she's alienated herself from due to drug abuse. And that storyline plays exceptionally well. So let's take a look at the 3 kind of chapters of Picard season 3. The first one gets Gates McFadden's character Beverly Crusher back into the show. She is the thing that kickstarts us into this new story. Picard is safely back at home. There's maybe something going on with his Romulan housemate, and he's tending to his vineyard when he gets the call from Crusher. And they have not been in contact for 20 some odd years. So Picard is pulled into this story once more, knowing that she would never reach out to him unless she needed to, and she's injured. And so Picard goes to the only person that he knows he has confidence in Starfleet, and that is Riker, who aided him at the very end of the first season in a very pivotal moment. So Picard and Riker look to board a ship, and that's where they reach out to 7 of 9, who is commanding in the number 1 role to Captain Shaw, who is a very different kind of captain than we've ever had before. And he's very standoffish. You don't really know what to make of him. And pretty soon that actor and that character become one of your favorite parts of this entire story. He is incredibly competent and so standoffish with them because he is a by the rules kind of guy when the rules make sense to him. And that you can see kind of a symmetry to him and Riker in an interesting way. And they both are captains of this Titan, the ship that they're on. But Admiral Picard comes on board to say that he's sort of sightseeing with the ultimate plan to take a shuttle pod and go and try to make contact with Crusher. Now, all that stuff and the drama between Shaw and Picard seems kind of unusual until, as the story progresses, you understand just exactly why he is so distrustful of Picard and Riker by extension. And that is because he was part of the battle against the Borg when Locutus, Picard, was taking people out. And it is one of the most powerful and stunning scenes when they're on the holodeck at Guinan's bar discussing exactly what happened. And his performance in that moment, Shaw was just extraordinarily good. It is the best acting I've seen in Star Trek, I think, maybe ever. It is one of my all-time favorite scenes. And that whole episode, No-Win Scenario, and the episode that led into it, I think No-Win Scenario is the best episode of Picard anything. It is absolutely perfect, and that is one of my favorite episodes of any kind of Star Trek media. It is that damn impressive. It is so well written, incredibly well written, and insanely well directed. And it has this beautiful moment, the encounter at Farpoint moment at the end of it, where as the characters experience rebirth, you have something that's kind of repeated often in the first 4 episodes. This note of everybody's at their absolute worst, and every one of them goes through a rebirth. Shaw goes through a moment where he has to then trust Picard and Riker, and he is reborn positively from it when Vadic is really truly revealed to them. You have the moment where, what's her name? Raffi is confronted with her drug addiction and is being forced to take these drugs just to maintain her mission. And she is jacked up, and she's close to a moment of death when she is saved by Worf, who then pulls her out of it, and you get Raffi's rebirth in that moment moving forward towards the trajectory she will have for the rest of this series. You have, obviously, Riker confronted with the darkness of his life and his non-belief in anything powerful. And he is reborn understanding that he is in a no-win scenario, he is going to die, and he keeps trying to reach out to Troi to just express how much he loves her. And he experiences rebirth, as does Picard once he learns he's a father. And there's this beautiful moment in the episode 17 Seconds where Riker tells Picard that when his son was born there were 17 seconds, and it was the longest 17 seconds of his life where he didn't know that his child would survive. But of course, he did. And Riker tells him this story. Later on in that same episode, you have Jack Crusher, Picard's son, who is in a state of mortal peril, and Picard has to go and visit him, and it's exactly 17 seconds of screen time following Picard getting to his son before he has that moment of rebirth and feeling, okay, I am no longer Starfleet, I am no longer Picard, I am a father to this grown man, but this child of mine. And it's a beautiful moment. The constant theme of rebirth is then visually thrust upon us when these cosmic vibrations that keep threatening to damage their already destroyed ship is proven to be contractions. And what we get from it is an actual birth in the sky of these jellyfish creatures that are very reminiscent of the jellyfish creatures we see in the very first episode of Next Generation, The Encounter at Farpoint. It's beautiful. The first 4 episodes are absolutely pitch perfect. Star Trek, pitch perfect television. I adored it. The middle chapter pivots hard into this sort of thriller angle where you don't know who to trust. It's kind of similar to The Thing. You have changelings aboard, you don't know who is a changeling, who is not, and they play with this in the first 4 episodes as well. But you're really truly introduced to Vadic from the episode after No Win Scenario onwards. Yes, you've met her here and there in the first couple of episodes, and she has her first big dramatic battle against the Titan, which cripples it in 17 seconds. But here is where we get to really spend a lot of time with Vadic, and I think she might be the best Star Trek villain after Khan. She is certainly the most potent threat, and it's wild because she's this kind of like small in stature person, but you absolutely fear what she is capable of. She is a tactical menace. And if I have one criticism of the show, it is the introduction that she is working for somebody higher than her. If I had to do it over again, I wish, or if they had to do it over again, I wish that they would have made her just be the main villain. I don't think that we needed to build in anything with the Red Door or anything like that. However, they did that, and I think it's executed very well. I just wish, I loved her so much. Eliminating her before the 2-part series finale was very disappointing. However, she gets eliminated in such an amazing way. And there's a tenseness when she boards the ship and she is dismantling it moment by moment, separating the crew, reminding me of one of my favorite episodes of the Next Generation disaster where the ship is in disrepair, the characters are all separate, and they have to use their wits and their will to survive using their technical know-how. And this is great. Along this journey, we've been introduced to one of the other primary characters that I hadn't talked about yet, who really comes into her own in this middle chapter set, and that is Sidney LaForge. This is Geordi's daughter, and she is a pilot. And along this journey, we do reconnect with Geordi. And Geordi and her have this fractured relationship because she didn't follow him into engineering like her sister did. She wanted to be a pilot, and it's their differences that make them so similar, not their similarities. And that's something that they have to learn and connect with. And this is a beautiful moment, but you get to see her as an agent of herself. You see tinges of the Geordi that we know in her, but she is definitely her own character and one of the best new additions to this series. I so wish that we get to continue seeing more of Sidney LaForge, but I'll touch on that at the very end. Along this journey, we have 7 of 9, who is loyal to Picard because of everything that happened in the first season and presumably other stuff that happened off screen in between series and whatnot. And her loyalty to Picard has created a fracture between her and Shaw that begins to repair itself in the middle chapters. And the Shaw and 7 of 9 storyline really plays exceptionally well throughout that middle run. And you see how he begins to truly accept her as who she is and not what he wishes her to be, which plays in ultimately to the end of the story as well. Picard learning to parent his son is present, but Picard kind of loses the middle section of his own 3rd season. He's in all the episodes and he has dramatic moments, but the show is concerning itself with building this bigger and bigger storyline and pulling other people in. How Worf is pulled in, how Troi is pulled in, how Geordi is pulled in, and ultimately how the data machine thing, the data, Uber data is pulled in, is done exceptionally well. I will say that I also am critical. There are 2 major criticisms the three major criticisms that I hold for season 3. Doesn't hold it back from being a near perfect experience, but if I have 3 criticisms, largely they take place in the middle sections. One, it is that Vadic answers to somebody else. She should have been her own villain. 2 is bringing back Data. He had such a beautiful earned death scene and tragic conclusion to the first season of Picard that really made the lameness that was Nemesis work wonderfully well for that character. His sacrifice was bought back from him, and Picard season 1 allowed that sacrifice to be made eternal, only for it to be brought back once more. But as we've learned ever since Search for Spock, death is meaningless in Star Trek, and if you have a really great character, they will bring them back despite them being dead. Like they did with Spock, like they did with Picard at the end of season 1, dying full death, only to come back, and then Data as well. However, just because you do something that I don't necessarily approve of doesn't mean you can't do it exceptionally well. And how they bring him back is really neat. They do another callback to the very first episode where Riker figures out who's in charge of Soong's station, and with the little whistling callback, and then you get Moriarty's little cameo, which a lot of people thought was neat. I hated the Moriarty stuff. It tickled me, I have to admit, but I was not a fan of that story thread in the original run of Next Generation. But they have Data there, and he has an organic, aged body, conveniently, and we finally get to see the thing that Data has always strived to do. Be human. And he has to first overcome lore and B4's programming as well. And by stripping all these things away, and lore is trying to strip all that Data is away from him, they all merge into one singular being. They call Data, I have decided to coin Uber Data. But it's really well done, and an emotional moment when lore is pulling all that is away from Data, like down to Tasha Yar's little statuette hologram, right down to Spot, trying to steal all these memories, thinking that that is what makes a person. But in doing so, he's just accepting all that Data is into him. And it's a powerful moment, made me tear up. And Data is not one of my favorite characters. I'm in the minority that he was my least favorite character in Next Generation. A lot of people adore Data, and I get it. Brent Spiner's a good actor, but and he's exceptional in this, by the way. But he just never did much for me, and this worked for me very emotionally. It's not something that I would have done. I would have let death remain permanent, but if they're going to bring him back, they did so in such a powerful way. The middle section really is about getting crippled by the changelings, but then taking the changelings out of the story, overcoming this feat, which of course they do by the end of it, which all leads to the Red Door and the revelation that the changelings and Vadic were all answering to one higher power. And this is the last criticism that I have of Season 3. We didn't need the Borg again. I mean, we dealt with it the whole previous season. But it's yet another example of like death having no permanence. Clearly, the Borg Queen was destroyed multiple times over at this point, and yet she's still kicking. However, they justify it well enough, and it works for me. It is my least favorite aspect of Season 3, the whole Borg Queen and all the revelations that come with it. That said, it leads to the two-part finale, which is so well written and absolutely gutting emotionally. There are so many moments that bring you to tears, and you feel this mounting sense of dread, especially when Riker, Worf, and Picard have to go and rescue Jack from the remnants of the Borg ship, which is stationed in the center of Jupiter's red spot. And visually, that was such a striking image, by the way. But the finality of these characters, knowing that they are going off to what is inevitably going to be their certain doom, and each of them sharing a moment, is powerful. Leading up to that moment, you have the first time all these characters are sitting around a table again, having a conversation, something that we hadn't seen for over 20 years at this point, and that was beautiful. Everybody really brought it. The energy was shared. You felt these people are family. And that's what this whole show has been about. We keep getting introduced to all of these kids, all these characters' kids, their family, but ultimately their family is together, and they're now just widening that and being inclusive of the next generation. And it has one of the funniest things in the world where Worf says that he missed these conversations. It was many times that he, when he beheaded his enemies, that he thought about sending them to every one of you. But I was advised that was passive-aggressive. That was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. I was dying. Michael Dorn is at his absolute best in this show. He's always been good, both on Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, and in the movies. But this is the best use of Worf we've ever gotten. He is so funny, and I want to see a road show movie with Worf and Riker. Those two playing off each other has always been good in the shows and stuff, but they seem to just hit a tempo this season that was pitch perfect. Their comedy timing was so exceptionally strong, and their emotional connectivity really worked as well. I cannot sing the praises of Michael Dorn and Jonathan Frakes in this season more. Jonathan Frakes, for my money, also gave the best performance he's ever given in no-win scenario. But then in the scene where he and Troi do reconnect aboard Vadic's ship or whatever, is also stunning. It is so good and so believable, and then he has that little joke about bringing in that old Riker charm one last time that I really quite found beautiful. Anyway, that was a side tangent. I've had many. I really, really liked what they did to build into this finale, where, you know, not everybody is going to make it out. And it was very reminiscent, especially leading into it, of Serenity. I've talked about this in my Star Trek Picard, and I've talked about this in the Abrams movies. I do feel like this show and this franchise has been riffing on a lot of the same tones, beats, scenes even from the great Firefly and Serenity by Joss Whedon. The scene where they're all cornered and Shaw gets killed is very reminiscent of when the Doctor gets shot in Serenity, and River has to comfort Simon as he's dying there, and then she gets into full gear. That's a great, powerful moment, one of my favorite moments in all of cinema, that is replicated in this show, where Jeri Ryan, 7 of 9, and Shaw share this moment. And Shaw, in fact, dies here, but not before giving her agency that he's been declining this whole time, and calling her 7 of 9. Made me cry so effing hard, and this was the second time I saw it. Oh, I love it. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful. But this big final showdown where you then have your main characters confronting that which is inevitable is interrupted by Deanna Troi finally getting something to do, where she recognizes the emotions that she can feel so strongly from her husband, because he's accepted not only that he's going to die, that there's going to be some kind of afterlife, because he says in that moment that, sorry, Izzati, I'll see you in the afterlife, or something to that effect. And he and their son will be waiting there. And she feels that moment and takes control of the ship and goes and finds him. It is one of the most powerful moments for Troi's character. It finally gives her something to do, because so many of the movies themselves didn't really give her anything. And the fact that she finally gets this big heroic moment to be the one to save the day and rescue them is very powerful. I'm getting choked up even talking about it now. It is so, so good. And the one thing that I haven't really talked about much is the fact that Gates McFadden finally got to do something as Beverly Crusher. All throughout the series, but especially in the first 4 episodes and the last 2, she has these shining moments where she takes control. You see how her character has grown and changed, and she has been the agent behind that growth and change. And she has one of the funniest bits in the finale where she starts blasting things using her skill and know-how that she picked up after being on the Enterprise. That was so funny. That said, the biggest surprise that I have yet to talk about is in the middle chapters, when we get reintroduced to Geordi, he is tending to sort of Starfleet museum, and you get to see cameos from all sorts of different things, be it the Genesis like little missile, be it the original Enterprise, the NX-1 from Enterprise, Kirk's ship, the Bird of Prey from the 4th movie, as well as Voyagers there. Like, you get to see all these like cameos from the history of Star Trek that you're familiar with. But when the Borg take control of all their sleeper cells and have Starfleet literally basically nuke itself by having all their people start firing in unison. The only ships that are like still operational are the old analog ones that aren't interconnected with the same interface. And so the crew boards the Enterprise one last time, and it's beautiful, emotional. That absolutely made me cry. Seeing the gloss and shiny floors of the Titan and everything that's come from Star Trek after Next Generation, abandoning that whole aesthetic and being brought back to this beautiful carpeted homey vacation bridge quality like that original Next Gen ship had was just, it was welcome. And I loved that. The Enterprise has to take on the Borg ship, and of course you have Picard reaching through to his son, and his son finally accepting his father, his role in this legacy, and everything. And Locutus is officially destroyed. The Queen is officially destroyed yet again, and you have a great finale. But it doesn't end there. It continues on for several more scenes, including one last moment with Shaw, where he makes a recommendation via previously recorded video for 7 of 9 to be deemed a captain, promoted to captain. So you see her on her bridge, and they rechristen the Titan to the Enterprise G, and you see the crew that is going to be aboard that ship. And it's 7 of 9, it's Jack Crusher, it is Sidney, it is Raffi, and it's the crew that you've gotten to know this whole season in smaller scale. And I was comforted by that, because I know that the Enterprise has a crew at its helm that I genuinely love and would love to see more adventures with. I hope to God we get the Star Trek Legacy show that they keep teasing, and if they do, I hope it's 100% of that same grouping of people. They are perfect. And I want to see more 7 of 9, more Sidney, more Jack, more Raffi. Let's go. We get one final moment where Picard, Riker, and Geordi say goodbye to the Enterprise, which was also very, very beautiful and moved me to tears. And one final goodbye where they even tip their hat to the voice of Majel Barrett, who was the voice of the computer. That was very neat and welcome. Season 3 is about seeing what the last of our Next Generation crew is going to be doing, while also setting up what their legacy is. And we get to see their legacy of heroism passed on to a next generation of people that we really have spent a season growing to like, love, and want to see more from. Season 3 of Picard is my favorite season of any Star Trek anything, and is comparable to the original series' first season, which I think had the highest highs of any Star Trek. And if I'm being honest with myself, there's no bad episodes here. There are criticisms that I have, and this show has the benefit of only having 10 episodes, and has the benefit of not having to like the writing style and the campy tone that comes with like 60s television. So like one-to-one quality, this is probably the best Star Trek has ever been, but that first season, when it hit its highs, were so incredibly high. This is the first season of Star Trek anything that I've seen able to match that, besides a handful of the movies. So, there you have it. That's my long-winded take on Star Trek Picard. I might hit you next week with a list of the 10 best episodes. However, honestly, the 10 best episodes are in this season, with the exception of, like, I might drop episode 2 of this season and throw in Nepanthe in there. So maybe you won't get a top 10. I'll see if I can come up with something else. Star Trek related. But then I'm going to take a bit of a breather away from Star Trek before I move on to what I'm planning to do, is do, not as frequently, but every couple of months, do a whole series review of the shows that I did not address. I was able to address all 13 movies, and I was able to address original series, animated series, Next Gen, Enterprise, and Picard. I suppose it's time to hit the spin-offs. So up next would be a review for Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I haven't decided if I'm going to go season by season review, because that show specifically is a little more linear, but I think I might just do a whole series review for that. So look forward to that in like 4 months. But thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought of Star Trek Picard Season 3 and Picard overall. The first season I think is very good. Season 2 is excruciatingly bad, and Season 3 is pitch perfect. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Let me know what your favorite moment is from this season in the comments down below. Peace.